Hi, and welcome to the Men on the Path to Love podcast. Bonus episode, conversation with sex mastery coach Lenard Louw. I'm Bill Simpson, your host. I coach men who are struggling in relationship, how to communicate effectively, build trust, and deepen intimacy so they can be the best version of themselves in relationship and live the life they love. In this bonus episode, you will hear my conversation with Leonard from Cape Town, South Africa, about men's sexuality. Leonard shares his amazing journey of being a left-brain corporate guy to traveling the world to learn about intimacy, spiritual sexuality, semen retention, orgasmic mastery, and more. He wrote a book about his journey called Jump. We also talk about the impact porn can have on men's sexuality. Leonard is all about creating a deep connection, having meaningful sex, and maintaining healthy masculinity. So stay with me. Check out our conversation. You just might learn something. Welcome, Leonard, to Men on the Path to Love.
Hi, Bill. It's wonderful talking to you today.
Well, I was excited that you reached out because men's sexuality is something that certainly doesn't get enough attention, and I think there's a lot that you can share to help men with their sexual awareness as a sexual mastery coach. Before we get into our conversation, I tell stories in my podcast, and I'd like to hear your story of your journey to where you've gotten to today.
Yeah, so I was up until 10 years ago in business and corporate. I was actually a CEO of an insurance company in Cape Town, South Africa. And then, call it 2009, started this business up for guys. And I just had a big internal shift. And I had just a different soul calling to do something different with my life. And it didn't make sense. So I tried to distract myself for 3-4 years, not listening to the voice to do something different. Distracted myself with a lot of sex and drugs and jacuzzis, as you do, for 3-4 years. And then by 2012, I realized, no, man, I have to listen to this inner voice. And the inner voice was very much clear out all the old to allow for the new to come in. I resigned my job and sold and gave away most of my possessions and bought a backpack and a one-way ticket to Lima in Peru. Wow. In South America, which then started a 5-year journey around the world where I just went, a lot of learnings, spiritual awakening, a lot of workshops, 35 countries, 5 continents. Then 2018, came back to South Africa and wrote a book, Jump, an epic soul and sex adventure. And it's very much a memoir about the last 10, 15 years of my life and the learnings. So that book was published 5 years ago. It's in exclusive books, all the bookstores in Southern Africa and also on Amazon and Audible.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, then people reading this book and then started asking me advice or questions. So, Bill, it just really flowed. I was just following the breadcrumbs. It wasn't planned. What I'm doing now wasn't planned at all. I just started then helping guys. Men were starting to talk to me. It was couples first, but now mainly in the men's space. So I just love. I saw what you're doing, and that's amazing. It has been so much done on women's work over the last 50 years, but right. Somehow not such in the men's space, and so that's really wonderful for me to see when I see that happening in the world. And I'm just responding really to the questions that came to me about modern masculinity and about sexuality. So I'm just in service and enjoying this new phase of my life, which is quite different to the different phases.
Well, it sounds like it was definitely meant to be, for sure. I wonder if you could share maybe one or a couple of your adventures that you talk about in the book, Jump.
Yeah, South America was amazing. Yeah, I went to South America and Colombia was amazing. I ended up there in Medellin, which is a beautiful city in the heart of Colombia. I actually got parasites in South America, and that actually kickstarted this whole journey of learning, So that led me to Tantra event and spiritual sexual shamanism, 7-day residential trainings. So that was quite an adventure, man. Arriving in Hawaii at a Tantra festival and doing eye gazing with people, and I came from the business world, and all of a sudden I'm with the spiritual people and the hippie people, and we doing eye gazing.
I'm going to interrupt you just to explain to our listeners who may not know, what is Tantra?
Yeah, for me, Tantra is a way of life. It's like being in the now, being in a moment. Um, but historically, it is an ancient practice from ancient India, 2000 years ago, and it includes really everything, including sexuality. Sexuality is a part of it, not all of it, and intimacy and being in the now, being in a moment. So at the Tantra festival, it would be a lot of that, conscious dancing, getting in your body, intimacy, experiences with people, eye gazing, things like that. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful old tradition with a lot of lineages, and one can go into a lot of the detailed part of it. But in essence, for me, it's a way of living. It's being in the now, it's being present with yourself, with people.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you clarified that, because I think here in America, a lot of the perception when they hear Tantra is all about sexuality, and not really seeing the other side of that.
No, that's exactly. I often use the terms conscious sexuality or sacred sexuality rather than tantra when I talk to people, because as you say, there's that perception. People immediately,
Yeah.
think about sex. So I went to a tantra festival. Oh, did you guys have orgies? It's like, that's and then I go like, man, you sit there, you're being vulnerable with someone, and you sit and look in someone's eyes, and the experience is so much different.
Yeah, it's
Um,
powerful. Yeah. We're kind of conditioned as men. It's not about looking in the eyes. It's just, strictly sex, and it loses the intimacy.
That's it. It's such a basic exercise, but I found also when we do these workshops that I do with people, that it is so intimate. So that experience you're asking me about in Hawaii and a big island, actually standing, and then you look in someone's eyes, and then a person would move, to the right, and then you look into the next person's eyes, and after that, you've looked into 40 people's eyes for like a minute each.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
It's pretty intense,
Yeah,
and
I can
it shouldn't
imagine.
be. It shouldn't be. It should be normal. It should be normal for us to interact that way. But as you say, we don't. So
Mhm.
that was a pretty wow experience for me. As simple as it sounded, it was like wow. And then you look into a person's eyes and you feel that connection. You connect with him or her, and vice versa. And I could see people were visibly moved by that, including myself.
I was going to say, it sounds like you were too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, it was definitely. It opened so much in my life for me. I didn't even know this the fact that we have masculine and feminine energies within us. And at these workshops, that's, for example, something else that you explore and talk about and feel. And so, yeah, my whole world really opened up. And yeah, and straight after that, went to a 7-day spiritual sexual shamanism workshop where we were doing emotional release, punching cushions for like half an hour, 50 people in the room with a lot of loud music playing. And yeah, it's pretty surreal. But
You're
then
getting
after
that
that,
aggression out.
exactly. No one, we've been so taught, boys don't cry and women shouldn't get angry. That's kind of two general kind of statements. And then, yeah, you're actually doing this. And it felt pretty, at that point, surreal. I thought there was a camera in a corner there that's, maybe we are on a reality show, right? But I tell you, my body was just buzzing, Bill. And I promise you, I was like, I could feel the energy between my hands, like a ball of energy. And my whole emotional body became alive. Yeah, it's a beautiful experience.
Yeah, and it sounds like it was pretty liberating, I would think.
It definitely was. I just realized that you could express your emotions. And yeah, it just really opened a whole new world for me. I was very much left brain in the business,
Right.
studied law and business and economics and all of that and business, to then go into this body experience where it's not just the mind, but you're actually having body experiences, and
Hmm.
you're feeling sensations in your body, and you're expressing the emotions, just expressing it by moving your body. That was really profound. Um, and that really made me excited to share that with people out in the world. And in a way, a little bit of a breach, I believe, because I come from that, how can you call it, that mainstream world, corporate world or business world. So, guys, when I tell, I kind of got a little bit of credibility, as strange as it may sound.
Sure.
So, yeah, so I enjoy being the bridge in this space.
Yeah, that's awesome, man, that you're doing that work. As a sexual mastery coach, what do you see are the main issues that, you find men have with sexuality?
I think the first thing is that there's no one to talk to.
Hmm.
So women talk to each other a lot more about sex, and men really don't. I think that's the first thing. There's no one really to talk to about it. And then secondly, no one has ever taught us and told us about anything regarding sexuality. If you're going to go play sport, in the USA basketball or in South Africa rugby or football, soccer, you get coached,
Right.
you get taught some basic principles of how to catch a ball and how to kick a ball. And in sexuality, there's nothing. So we grow up as teenage boys and no one talks to us about sex. And then the worst thing in the last 20 years or so, pornography is so easily available on the internet.
Yeah.
So now that becomes the education. That's a pretty bad place to get education.
Not a good example, especially if you want to maintain a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really, there's not a lot of learning that can happen from there. And as a matter of fact, the learning that happens from there puts guys then in a box in their mind. It actually takes them out of their bodies into their minds. And then they see that picture and then totally miss the boat and about the intimacy and where sexuality can go. Conditioning also about shame and guilt and about sexuality also then creates that feeling of shame and guilt. So then they watch shame porn and then they feel shame and full of guilt, and then it's even worse. And then maybe the last, well, there are many things probably, but the one thing I also can mention maybe here, Bill, is the fact that the guys then almost become often get to what I would call an ejaculation addiction cycle, where they don't realize that you can hold your ejaculation and you can make love for a longer period of time. And then the fact that we had to masturbate very fast as teenage boys not to be seen, plus pornography show us all of this fast ejaculation. Our bodies are so trained to ejaculate fast, and then the lovemaking experience is so short with your partner. And then when you get into the relationship with a partner and you used to ejaculating in 2 minutes, then you're going to do it in that encounter also.
Right.
So I think that's the other thing, and I find a lot is that the lovemaking is, I mean, just to be very blunt and not politically correct, is too short. Oh, on average, I think the stats is like 5 minutes after penetration. That's how long it lasts. And, that's too short for a body to warm up.
I know. And the woman's just there like, okay, that's it, and we roll over, and man, it can be so much better, so much more fun and enriching. And I want to go back to the porn piece because one of the things I learned, of course, I looked at porn earlier in my life and saw quite a bit of it and even shared with my ex-wife. It was just kind of exciting and we're kind of learning along the way. But these days, it's just a lot more aggression and, lack of respect and those kind of things. And I find out from women who used to be in the industry, how deplorable their conditions are. And of course, they made the choice to do that. Yet I don't think men realize what these women have gone through, first and foremost, to make a living doing what they're doing.
Wow, no, I haven't. I mean, I'd actually love to talk to some of those women. I mean, I wasn't aware of that, I suppose it's kind of logical in a way. But yes, I mean, I'm in a state in my life where I don't think anything is either just bad or good. So I think there is place for porn, as you say, if you watch it with your partner, I think there is some good in it at some times.
Right.
The problem becomes when it becomes addictive. And when it takes guys, I saw a crazy stat the other day of like men between the ages of 18 and 30, like something like 28% haven't had sex in the last year.
Mm.
It's just fascinating. And a big part of it is because of they glued to the screen. So I think that's the other part with the pornography is that, it takes the younger men and all men, I suppose, it takes the incentive away to really engage with a real woman now, because now you have this relationship with your screen.
Yeah, and I think that was a good point that you brought up that, it doesn't really last that long. And then when they are in a real situation, then, it's going to suffer. The relationships can suffer with that.
No, exactly. Yeah, because then the guy is also in his mind, the porn images are still there when he's connecting with his partner. Instead of having body contact and slowly, sensually making love to her, looking into her eyes.
Right.
As you say, there's not a lot of eye gazing and pornography.
Not at all. And the lack of intimacy, there's some out there that depicts that, but most of it's not intimate at all. It's just very often aggressive and just to the point.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think, gives guys a false sense of what intimacy and sex and lovemaking is all about.
Exactly. And also I think sometimes also inadequacy. And I talk to some of the guys and they say, wow, I feel a bit inadequate. But what the guys don't realize is that I mean, first of all, these guys do it for a living.
Right.
But secondly, it's also been edited, it's been cut and edited and, it's not like the real experience.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, then they come to their partner and then they expect the partner, the expectation the partner looks like that or does that, that they saw in a porn movie.
Yeah, and we
So,
get
so
into, the myth about size, and they see these porn stars with large penises and they think, oh, that's what's going to please a woman, And,
uh,
I heard from one former porn guy with a large penis say that he pleasured more women more with his mouth than he ever did with his penis. So so, but strike that myth. But if you're exposed to that over and over and you think that's just it, I can see how a guy could see himself as inadequate, and not just in terms of size, but in performance and everything else.
yes, and also I believe it affects one's energy. And maybe share experience I had when I was in South America in Guatemala. And I was already like a year on this journey, getting a little bit involved in learning about Tantra and so on. And then the one evening there, at a lake in Guatemala, I went to watch like 2, 3, 4 hours of porn. And I had a lot of ejaculation. And the next day I walked in a village, well, and my interaction with people, especially with women, were different. So the day before, a few days before I would be there, it's a small village and it's a very much yoga and a spirituality place. And I would connect with the women naturally and they would talk to me friendly. Now, that day after watching that porn and 3, 4 hours of that, there was something in my energy field that actually almost pushed them away.
Mm,
And I felt a bit off, it was a bit of guilt and shame around me. And I
sure.
just noticed my interaction with people were different. So I think, we can talk about that for hours, but having this experience, and I realized then that, wow, energetically, there's something that happens with us when we watch this really, how can I say, especially the objectifying porn and a rough
Right.
objectifying porn. Then the next day you walk around, you look at women differently. You look at them as if you're objectifying them and they feel it. So
Yeah.
therefore your interaction with them is different. They don't want to talk to you. And that makes me very sad because that means that a lot of young guys are out there and they want to have women in their lives, but it's kind of not happening because the porn is creating something in their energy field that is actually pushing the woman away.
Yeah. And it's not that it's intentional, it's just the affect of their exposure.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. And they don't understand that they're depleting their energy, or they're affecting their energy field, don't even have a clue. And then they wonder why they're not connecting.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Guys, part of the 21-day journey that I do is that not to ejaculate for 21 days and not to watch porn for 21 days and then 2, 3 other morning rituals. But I promise you, just those two things and the interaction that the men, especially the young men, have with women is a game changer. If they just for a week or 2 or 3 not watch porn or for a week or 2, whatever, not ejaculate, their whole world changes as far
Wow.
as women is concerned.
Wow. You mentioned it earlier about semen retention, and I certainly have a history of this that I've never really talked about. I'm a Tai Chi master instructor, and my current teacher, who I've had for over, almost 30 years, had told me a long time ago when he was living with me about retaining the semen, to hold back and to, for my own energy, to keep this within. And the more and more that I would ejaculate, a lot of my vital energy was escaping.
Sure.
And I was like, well, how do I hold back, And I did some reading on it. I saw a video on it and I practiced it myself. And it was amazing how I found it as just as pleasurable or even more, and still like having my vitality and energy afterwards. I wasn't depleted afterwards. It was just like almost more energized than depleted. So that's my brief description of my experience in it. Please share with us what you teach other guys in terms of semen retention.
Oh, beautiful, boss. Thanks for sharing. It really makes my heart happy coming across other guys that are doing the same.
It's rare, man. I'm telling you, it's rare. Try to talk to
Yeah,
a guy like that, and he's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
yeah. You want me to do what? Not to ejaculate? Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And you said it, the first point is that just by holding it, your energy levels go up. Um, they say that after ejaculation, it's like on average between 5 to 7 days, maybe call it 3 to 7 days for your body just to recover in terms of building up the sperm cells and the proteins and the enzymes. And in that 5 7 day period, I call it the ejaculation hangover period,
Right,
because
right.
it is zero the base, and then you drop below the base, and then only 7 days later you hit the zero base again. So in that 7 days, you basically deplete it. And to give your listeners a bit of a feel about it, is that it's on average like 200 million sperm cells that leave the body with one ejaculation.
Mm,
It's like 200 different proteins and enzymes. So these are life force energy that can make a baby, that can make life. So this is really, really crucial life force energy that then goes out of your body. So if you, in that 7 day period, let's say ejaculate every day, and let's say you've done that from the age of 14 to the age of 40 or 50 or 60, that
mm,
means you, for your whole life, lived in this ejaculation hangover period.
yeah.
Now, it's not going to kill you, but well, the Taoists kind of believe it will kill you.
Well, it kills a part of you, right? Yeah.
Kills a part of you, exactly. And so you're not living optimum, you're continuously depleted. And as you yourself said, if you go outside that 7 day period and you maybe for 10 days or 2 weeks haven't ejaculated, then the energy levels just go up so much, So that's almost the first way to explain it, is that your energy goes up, your libido goes up, your vital aura fields just start glowing. And what I basically teach the guys is to find their own ejaculation frequency period. For some guys, it'll be once a week. For some, it'll be once in 2 weeks, once in 3 weeks, depending on the age. Mine is about once in 2 weeks. And that is with making love a few times a week, So maybe that is the one important thing to mention here, that the distinction between the two types of the semen retention happening in the world at the moment and on the internet. And the first one is what they call no FAP.
No fap.
And the FAP comes from the fap sound of masturbating.
I got it.
So the guys that say never ejaculate ever, and it's not good to ejaculate. And so a guy in India said $1 million business by not ejaculating for 2 years. And so that's one way of doing it. That's the point A.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm talking about is another point, B or X, which is no, please don't do that. Enjoy your ejaculation. So my semen retention, and some lot of other guys around the world, and also what you do, is pleasure positive, and it is sex positive. So it is definitely ejaculate and enjoy it. Just bring consciousness to the ejaculation. Not to ejaculate too much to deplete yourself. And then with that come a lot of other stuff. Like starting having orgasms without ejaculation, that is a whole long discussion.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and what I'm hearing you say too, Leonard, is there's a balance there, trying to find some balance with that. Yeah. Describe to men that if they're interested in doing this, like what do they need to do to retain, to hold back?
So breathing is quite important.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I always call it the three things, and that applies to lovemaking, and it actually applies to self-pleasuring or masturbation also. So I call it the three very important things: breath, sound, and movement.
Mm.
So you're breathing. Often what happens is if you stop breathing and you're making love and your breath's getting very fast and all the energy stays here in your groin area, it's so easy to spill out there when you get to a heightened state. But if you can slow your breathing down, and I teach the guys to breathe the energy up. Now it sounds very woo-woo, but to breathe the energy up up their spine into their head, and they can circulate it. But broadly speaking, a big part is moving the energy not just from your groin area, but through your whole body.
Mm.
And that is so easily done just with some breathing exercises. And a little bit of control of also the PC muscles that you can also, when you get close, you can contract. There's also a way of getting to this orgasm without ejaculation where you actually don't contract, you just relax that muscle.
Right.
So that's some practical things.
Yeah. What resources, I mean, other than yourself, of course, could a man go to find out more information about this practice?
Oh, well, there's so much on the internet now. It's amazing. It just the last 5 years exploded. And that's why I mentioned especially the difference between the NoFap on the one hand and this one I'm talking about. The guys thought get too confused that it's the NoFap one. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of information on the internet, on YouTube. There are two guys in America, also two younger guys that do it. They do the similar thing that I do, the 21-day journey. I do that. I mean, there's a lot of free resources on my website. There's just articles and free videos there that people can just go watch.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so I think a big thing is to just read up on it. I mean, there's a book called Mantak Chia, The Multi-Orgasmic Man.
Right.
He brought it to the West in the 70s or 80s. I think we've moved on. I think now there are more relaxed ways of learning it, but a lot of it is available on the internet. And then if you're really serious about it, then I would really recommend actually doing a journey with someone. It doesn't have to be me. It can be to any of the other guys in the world that do it. Because, it's one thing watching the videos. It's another thing actually being held accountable or holding each other accountable to at least for 10 days or 21 days to follow this, because that's the other part of it. Just reading about it is one thing, but the other thing is you have to
Yeah.
practice it also. And then I think going on a journey is makes it super important.
Sounds great. Leonard, I feel like you and I could just talk for a few hours here. Any last minute advice or anything you want to share to men in terms of sexuality, freeing themselves of, the shame and the guilt, as you had mentioned, the fear. Any last minute words you'd like to share?
Yes, for men, especially young men, to be confident and unapologetic about their masculinity.
Mm,
Yeah, we need the men in the world. We need the young men in the world. And yes, do the inner journey to grow your healthy masculinity.
hmm.
Do all that work, but then step forward in confidence and don't apologize for your masculinity. Don't apologize for your erection. Be proud to be a man, but do the inner work also. So I feel quite passionate about it. There's actually almost don't want to repeat this word because I don't like the word. But there's so much out in the world there about toxic masculinity.
Right.
Yeah, and then these young men arrive in the world, and they haven't nothing to do with patriarchy. They just arrived here, and then they get clubbed left, right, and center, and they get very confused of what's their role as a man in the world.
Right.
So yes, let's be honest, there was a lot of damage with patriarchy, both to women mainly, but to men also. But we're moving on. We must move on, and so important for men to do the inner work and to grow their healthy masculinity, but then to be strong and confident in their masculinity, not to be proud of it.
Very good. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, Leonard, please share your contact information with us.
Yeah, the best is my website. It's lenardlouw.com, lenardlou.com. With that spelling, it's probably good to put it under the description, Bill. But that's the best place. And my WhatsApp number and email, everything is on that website.
Okay, great. And I'll have that link in the show notes as well. So if you didn't get that spelling, it'll be in the show notes for you. Well, Lenard Louw, thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom with us. And maybe we'll cross paths again sometime to talk more.
I would love to, Bill. Thanks a lot.
And that's going to do it for this bonus episode of the Men on the Path to Love podcast, conversation with sex mastery coach Lenard Louw. Thanks again going out to Leonard for sharing his knowledge, wisdom, and his journey. And remember, you can find Leonard's contact information in the show notes. Now, coming up on the next episode of the Men on the Path to Love podcast, I'll share Nick's story about how he discovered that his wife was a narcissist. Yes, even though narcissism is more common in men, women can be narcissists too, but not in the way you may think. Please join me for Is My Wife or Partner a Narcissist? Understanding Female Narcissism in Relationship episode. So, do you have a topic you'd like for me to cover? Maybe something going on in your relationship you need help with? Or just want to connect or work with me? You can do all the above at my website, menonthepathtolove.com. You can email me or set up a free discovery call. You can also download my free cheat sheet, 5 Ways to Communicate Better in Relationship. That's at menonthepathtolove.com. And if you know someone you think might benefit from listening to this podcast or would like to post on your social media, please share the link and share the love. And until next time, keep your heart open and stay on the path to love.